I kindly ask you to go back to your seats. I see a huge interest at the testing booth. You have the probability, not the probability, you have the options and the possibility in all our breaks, coffee and lunch break, to play with the instrument. And of course, as my colleagues already told you, they are available online, so you can use it. So we start in another 1 minute the third panel of this conference, of the SABRINA final conference. We talk about the cycling infrastructure safety from policy, strategy to practice. And I'm very happy to have next to me our Bulgarian project partner, Lucia, Ilieva. Please join us and take the stage and put us through the whole panel about cycling strategies. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, dear colleagues, welcome to the second session of our conference. We are starting now with presenting other solutions than SABRINA concerning the cycling safety and concerning the strategies for cycling safety, which is extremely important, not only at local level, not only at national level, but also at European level, as we agree, all of us, that it should be give us some guidance how to apply all these good results that we achieved in the frames of SABRINA. The first couple of speakers are Jitka, Vrtalová, representative of the Partnership of Urban Mobility of Czechia, and Ionut Maftei, representative of the Bike in Time of Romania. This is the Romanian partner of the big project Danube Cycle Plans that is developing policies, plans, and promotion for more people cycling in Danube area. And Jitka will start with the presentation of the developed strategies of this project.
Maybe you are asking why to talk about other projects. We are here because of SABRINA project. In the next few minutes, I would like to demonstrate to you how two projects went together hand in hand, supporting each other. My name is Jitka Vrtalová. I was a communication manager for Danube Cycle Plans project. And the main result of this project was the Danube cycling strategy. So I will say a few words about that. But before we start, I would like to talk more about why safe routes need strategies, and at the same time, implementing strategy wouldn't be possible without strong focus on safety. The main goal of Danube Cycle Plans project was to increase the volume of cycling, but it was not the goal itself. It was the part of the higher strategy. You can see here the 9 partners that were involved, from 9 countries that were involved. 5 of them were ministries or the organizations representing ministries in the respective countries. And why we are talking about safety, why we are talking about the volume of cycling. It's not the final goal, and many of it was set to the first session. As Rob, the CEO of IRAP, I won't mention his surname because I don't want to risk to create any more national alternative of his nickname, so sorry, but I will just call him Rob. Rob mentioned that cycling is not a goal. It's a tool for climate protection, for cleaner air, for more healthier environment. By the way, would you assume what is the most frequent causes of death? What is the most severe killer in the society? Just, you can do it for your own, or you can say it out loud if you want to. These are so-called NCD, non-commutable disease, so-called lifestyle diseases. You can think of or you can imagine things like chronic respiratory illnesses, cerebrovascular strokes, cancer, obesity. But what is important, one of the most important risk factors is the lack of physical activity. This is why we are talking about strategies. This is why we are talking about the need of increasing the volume of cycling, which wouldn't be possible without safe infrastructure. And at the same time, cyclists are often mentioned as so-called vulnerable users. And we should all the time have in mind that these are not the accidents which kill them, but rather it's the lack of physical activity for those who don't cycle. This is more important factor and the more dangerous factor for the whole society. Where did it start? I was talking about the strategy and strategy's importance. Of course, we are referring to SDG goals defined by United Nations. But what was the real historical milestone? It was the 18th of May when the Pan-European Master Plan as a part of Vienna Declaration was signed. It was adopted by all the UNIC countries, which is for just to explain in short, that's the Pan-European region, including Canada and some other countries like China and so on. So it's more than Europe, and the Pan-European Master Plan became the main. It was the main, let's say, document for our project and for our activities. But not only the Pan-European Master Plan. We shouldn't forget EU cycling strategy, recommendations for delivering green growth and effective mobility in 2030, which was mentioned by Philippe Amaral in the first round, or in the introductory round. And Franz Timmermans was mentioned. It's very important since this is the strong political will of strong political stakeholder for a Green Deal. In fact, he's the creator of the Green Deal at the EU level. So, not talking more about the importance of the topic, we have now here the Pan-European Master Plan adopted by UNIC countries, which has 11 topics, 33 recommendations, with user-friendly cycling infrastructure as the very important one goal. Road safety audits should be strengthened with more focus towards cyclists' needs. That was the internal, let's say, recommendation made by Danube Cycling Strategy, and I will talk more about the Danube Cycling Strategy as well, because since this was one of the main outputs of our Danube Cycle Plans project. And I hope that this number of strategic document won't be a too much mess. I hope this is more for supporting, since they are supporting each other. EU cycling strategy, Pan-European Master Plan for cycling promotion, and Danube cycling strategy. They go hand in hand and support one another. Why did we do that? This was the question I was talking about right now. And now I will focus on the safe cycling network, which was defined by Danube Cycle Plans. This was just one third of the project. As Lucia mentioned, the slogan of the project was policies, plans, and promotion. So now I will talk about the second, the internal, the core part of it, the plans. The project partners defined the so-called Danuvelo. Danuvelo, it's a core cycle route network in all 9 countries, defined which are based on the national cycle route networks, which means the core core networks and on Eurovelo routes. Then this is the procedure when and how it was defined. Of course, it was sorted out into several categories according to its safety and also the openness and the cyclists' needs, how they are friendly to cyclists' needs. Starting from the good enough cycling infrastructure, you can see a few examples over there behind me, until the not enough cycling infrastructure. And of course, there are public transport options included as well in sections where it is hard or impossible to cycle, like in river crossings and on high passes. This is one we focused on predominantly. Why? The new cycling infrastructure is needed when there is a high traffic volume or high speed limit. But what is maybe the most important, we found out in the national cycling working groups based on 30 months of work that only 20% of the whole core network can be called good enough. And 22nd is in the last section, last part, which is called NECE, not enough cycling infrastructure, meaning that there is not definitely open for cyclists. You can see the distribution and more numbers which can be explained later. Why did we do that? It was not the only goal. That was not the only goal. We wanted to have reliable numbers for investment assessment to ask for at the European level, and we did it. We had a seminar in Brussels on 13th of October, which was moderated by Jill Warren, the CEO of European Cyclists Federation, and we asked for these numbers because we calculated that 5.2 billion euro is needed to do the minimum level, which means to make the filling gaps and to make them in the final stage. And for Czechia, I can say, because I came from Czechia, we are very happy, because for the moment we have 280 million euros in EU funds. Well, not just thanks to this project, of course, but the long-term effort together with all organizations who are involved in it. And you will see that in Romania, it's very promising as well. My colleague, Ionut Maftei, who is here as the representative of INCDT, our Romanian partner, will talk about it more. What did Danube Cycle Plans brought to Romania? So the final, this is the final screen. You can see the main recommendations of Danube Cycling Strategy, which was one of the main outputs of our project in the left part. In the right part, you see more outputs, the key outputs, which was, of course, Danube Cycling Strategy, as mentioned before, the Danube Velo network defined, but not only this, investment necessities calculated and added by updated CBA cost-benefit analysis with a test as well. So if you have more questions, don't hesitate to come to me. I'm here for you to tell you what I know. And the floor is, I give the floor back to Lucia, who might say you a few words.
Thank you, Jitka, for the very interesting explanations of this amazing project. And I will give the floor of our Romanian colleague because we are in Romania. Let's see what happened in Romania in the frames of this project. But I would like, before giving the floor of Ionut, to share with you my opinion about the named Danube projects. There are a lot of Danube projects dealing with road safety, with infrastructure, with cycling, with sustainable mobility, Trans-Danube Pearls, this project that Jitka and Ionut are presenting. And in all of these projects, we have developed a very valuable documents, strategies, plans, sustainable touristic and mobility plans also in one of the projects we have delivered. But dear colleagues, I think that these strategies are not enough to be developed. They should be implemented. They should be really incorporated in the decision-making process at all levels, starting from the national level. And in this way of reasoning, I think that very useful is the SABRINA project, because the SABRINA project is really delivering something that is final, a product that could be used immediately and not waiting for the decision maker of somebody to implement or to enforce it and so on. So I would like again to emphasize on the importance of SABRINA project in the frames of all other fantastic projects funded by the DTP. Thank you.
So, I'm Ionut Maftei. I'm representing the National Institute for Research and Development in Tourism in Romania, which was the partner in the Danube cycling project. I'm also want to thank once again for inviting me as consultant in this project. And will be very short, just to present the outputs of this project for Romania. What was, why was so important for us? If is there any promising things that have been done? And I have to tell you from the very beginning that when I was involved in this project, it was such an ambitious project, and for our situation of Romania at that moment, that means 1.5 years ago, was kind of almost a nonsense. Because I did not understood exactly why do we really need this kind of outputs, because nobody will implement it, nobody will use it. Probably will be only paper that will be ended in somewhere in I don't know, in the folder in the partners' offices. And then what happened? What happened was that. First of all, was a very successful project because it had such a good visibility all over Europe, European institutions. And you see, we had the support of ECF. Even Jill was with us when along the project and to the end of the project. I also want to thank Aleksander for doing such a good training, and Florence as well for us. And I cannot forget the Mr. Robert Thaler, when on Velocity in Ljubljana presented the project as well with the PEP and everything. Then we had Ed Lancaster together supporting and signing all this document. But then it was also is much more than a project, because you see, we started as partners, as normal partners on a project, which normally we are meeting during meetings, but we ended, look at us, we ended like a gang of friends just meeting and preparing the next trip by bicycle. That was, they've been so enthusiastic at the end. We are, this is really a team, it's not anymore a partner meeting. What was for Romania? Romania, luckily, we've done some good steps in the last year, especially in the legislation step part. So first of all, we benefit somehow with the resilience plan. The resilience plan is a consequence of the pandemic, and I don't like to say, but yes, we are beneficiary of the pandemic. Without pandemic, the resilience plan wouldn't be there, and we've been luckily the cycling part was included in the resilience plan. So now we are very happy that we have to make some real steps in the legislation, and part of the steps were already done. So, for instance, we had a government decision for marking and homologation the cycling tourism network. That was a small step, but so important because suddenly we understood all the meanings of the output of the project. It was pretty clear why do we need a strategy for the entire country. It was pretty clear why did we need a network, why do we need to have an audit of the policies. It was for me totally not to understand at the beginning of the project, why do we have to do an audit of the cycling policies? Because we don't have legislation. But we understood lately that why is this needed. So only with this very easy, in fact, and highly expected decision, suddenly a lot of light coming into the whole puzzle. Then the National Velo Coordination Center was founded, and they are already present here. They have a lot of work. We try to support as much as possible, and please be sure that we will support you. So keep the fight for what you are doing there. Then the traffic code was amended by overtaking cyclists by cars, and by this I think we are solving some of the problems, especially in the very difficult parts of the routes we have. Everybody is discussing about Eurovelo, those 20 kilometers along the Danube. This might be one solution, part of the solution. Then roads for cyclists, there is one law. We have from Environmental Agency one guide for financing new cycling lanes. That's a nice story that you will see very soon. We have a national strategy for encouraging the use of bicycle, which is in analysis, is not totally adopted. First national cycling plan, which is already adopted by the Cycling National Velo Coordination Center, and it was approved also in the National Coordination Center. They prepared the guide for financing cycling tourism. I think on 5th of December will be open for financing for projects. And we have a lot of local and regional master plans. I have to say, on the local and regional plans, things are happening much faster than in the national plan, which I think is normal. And we have a lot of counties which are elaborating master plans. Also, Romania was, as Jitka already mentioned, Romania was signatory state in 2021 for the PEP. And we hope that in the future, the Transport Ministry will undertake this, will include in the strategy the cycling part. It is also important. So we have the first results here, as I said. For instance, we have master plan for Brașov, for Timișoara. Our friends from Timișoara are already here. Bucharest just announced that a master plan will be elaborated. The national program for cycling routes, which was initiated by the Environmental Agency, opened on, I don't have the date here, is somewhere here, but in 3 minutes, 108 projects were uploaded on the platform, so all the money were gone. So this shows how much the interest for cycling is in this country. Then also there are private partners. For instance, there is one cyclist welcome certification which will be extended in Romania. This certification already exists in Czech Republic, in Slovakia, and Poland, and Hungary. And we like to announce that we are launching this certificate here. So the Danube Cycle Plans provided few instruments that for the future, I think for the next 5-10 years, can be used by administration for using. The National Institute for Research and Development in Tourism elaborated the status quo questionnaire, which can be used maybe and hopefully will be updated. Then we created the National Cycling Network, a proposal which was already taken by the National Velo Coordination Center. We've done for the first time in the whole 9 countries, we've done a policy audit for cycling, and we really had a surprise. Not only we do have some policies, but it's a very useful instrument that I really recommend to each administration, each local administration and regional administration to use it even before starting developing other master plans and policies, because it's show you at the very beginning moment where you are. It is important for this. Doesn't cost too much in an Austrian association, organization which is doing this. Then the Danube cycle plan, we have an investment plan that already Jitka provided the figures. The National Velo Coordination already had a study based on our what we provide. We have a catalog of cycling-friendly infrastructure. And then we have the first national cycling plan for Romania, which is a strategy, in fact. And safety in that plan is a very important part. And also we are part of Eurovelo route inspectors. And again, thank you for providing this.
I'm very glad, dear colleagues, that Romania is so advanced, thanks to this, to many other projects in the mobility and especially in the cycling. Usually Bulgaria and Romania are going together since the moment of European accessions, now for Schengen and for all kinds of important issues. But I think that this time I should recognize that Bulgaria is behind Romania in this very important work for improving the cycling network and the cycling legislation. Now let's see what happens at European level. I'm giving the floor of Aleksander Buczynski, who is from the European Cycling Federation. And he will present the cycling infrastructure safety issues, perhaps the Directive 96, I suppose. So you have the floor shortly, 15 minutes, no more, because we have one more presentation after you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will try to be brief. The title of this session is From Policy to Practice. I would like to go the other way around to see how practice affects or feeds back into policies on the European level. So I would like to say give a few examples what is needed for safe cycling infrastructure and how it fed back into the recent revision of the Road Infrastructure Safety Management Directive that has been mentioned a few times already today. So the answer to the first question, what do you need for cycling infrastructure? Usually the first answer when you ask this question is money. But you can sometimes it's also political will. But you can see plenty of examples across Europe. The money is growing for cycling investments is growing exponentially. Also, the EU funding, partially thanks to the ECF efforts, we can see it tripling with each EU budget. It's 3 times more for cycling. But the more money we see for cycling, the more we see that it's not enough, that you also need know-how, you need standards, you need to know how to design, how to plan, how to build for cycling. This, of course, is just a fun example, that someone not realizing that bicycle don't turn on straight angle in place. But there are so many examples where you have cycle paths which are simply dangerous to use. Like here, for example, you don't have absolutely no visibility between cyclists and the cars coming from the side streets. This might look like something like some drunk people drew on the Monday morning, but it's actually a part of a big EU-funded project with 50 million euro budget and 10 million euros spent on just on promotion of this new route. But obviously not enough was paid for quality assurance, for making sure that it's really usable. The second problem we see very often is that cycling projects are absolutely something on their own, and you don't think about cycling so much when you do other projects. For example, build a motorway, upgrade a railroad, and we see very often that this kind of big projects sabotage cycling routes, cycling networks. This is quite a non-example. On the right, you see the city of Szeged in Hungary, and on the left, there is this green route leads to towns of Domaszek and Marahalom, and it used to be a continuous green route, a continuous cycle path. But when the motorway from Budapest to Belgrade was built, the designers simply didn't think, well, we're designing a motorway somewhere in the middle of nowhere, we don't need to think about cyclists. So they didn't provide for any connection in this interchange between the motorway National Route 55, I think. And now we are with very dangerous and expensive to fix and complicated problem. And it's still not fixed. It happened maybe 15 years ago. It's still not fixed. This is another example from my hometown, from the suburbs of my hometown, from Warsaw, and we had a very nice project from the Integrated Territorial Investments to build a cycle track connecting the suburbs to the city center. So you can cycle all the way on a segregated cycle path built to high quality standards. But then when the railroad was planning the upgrade of the railroad, they didn't include cycle track in the tunnel that will connect the district with the road leading to the center. So you can see that the different lines of funding are sort of working against each other. ERDF is funding cycle path, and Cohesion Fund is funding a sort of black spot on that will end this cycle path, and the whole infrastructure will not be safe for use. And I can understand it from the railroad perspective. Cycling is not their core business. It's if they can save 0.3% on the project costs, they will do it. But from the point of view of the user of the transport system, or from the point of view of the taxpayer funding both of those projects, it doesn't make any sense. And we see that these mistakes are very expensive to fix. This is an example from Brussels, my new hometown, which made this kind of mistakes 50 years ago or 40 years ago. And this is a new cycle bridge. Actually, there's 4 bridges and a tunnel. You see only one bridge, but you need 4 bridges and a tunnel to get across the big interchanges in the area next to the airport to connect the suburbs to the city center. And this section, 2 kilometers of a cycle highway, costed more than 30 million euros to retrofit cycling infrastructure into this big infrastructure between the airport, high-speed railroad, and the ring road. And moreover, it's not the only project that is needed on the ring road. There are now ongoing more than 20 projects to fix the barrier that was created by the Brussels ring road, to make it possible to connect the suburbs to the city center, to also enable people from the suburbs to cycle to the city center. And of course, not all of them are as expensive as this bridge next to the airport, but it shows the scale of the problem. And it would only cost a fraction of the costs if cycling was integrated from the very beginning in the project design, in the project planning. And big infrastructure projects, of course, can also be an opportunity for cycling if you plan from the very beginning. If you, for example, plan a new bridge and you plan for cycling track, that it would be much cheaper and easier and probably better quality than if you retrofit it later. You can also use it to connect some local routes to provide missing connections for cyclists. And these 2 issues, the quality requirements and the integration of cycling in other investments, have been recognized on the European level with the recent revision of the Road Infrastructure Safety Management Directive. This is a directive that was first adopted in 2008, and it defines the 4 procedures that were supposed to ensure that the European roads are safe to use, starting from the road safety impact assessment and going through audit inspection to the, now it's called network-wide road assessment. The problem was that initially the focus of those procedures was in practice very much on the occupants of the safety, on the safety of occupants of the car. It was related to the fact that it was very much, the scope of the directive was initially limited to the trans-European network. But we saw many examples, like the ones I've shown before, that the trans-European network also interacts with cycling infrastructure. So it's also important to think about cycling when you design trans-European projects. And with the recent revision, the scope was extended to so-called primary roads and also other EU-funded rural roads. So one of the new articles in the revision was that the member states shall ensure that the needs of vulnerable road users are taken into account in the implementation of all the directive procedures. So all those the different procedures from planning to evaluation of the roads. And there were quite a lot of other cycling amendments. One of those was that the Commission, the European Commission should provide guidance on quality requirements regarding vulnerable road users, and this guidance should be developed with member state experts. And also that the training curricula for road safety auditors should be updated, should include aspects related to vulnerable road users and the infrastructure for them, so they are trained to start noticing issues like this, which unfortunately still very often happen in different projects. So what's happening now? The directive should already be, the revised directive should already be transposed to the national legislations, and there should also be a proposal for the primary road network, which should be agreed with the European Commission. So it's usually national roads, but it might differ from country to country. Currently, there are the pilot network-wide road assessments carried out in all member states, sometimes more advanced, sometimes a bit less. Maybe in the next year we start working on the quality requirements for walking and cycling infrastructure. The group hasn't started work yet. Sometimes, unfortunately, the European procedures take a bit more time. 2024 is the deadline for updating the training curricula for road safety auditors. And in 2025, we should have the first EU-wide network-wide road assessment, which also should include the safety of vulnerable road users. And of course, it's not the end of the road on the European level. There's Philip mentioned in the opening speech the ongoing revision of the Trans-European Transport Network guidelines, where we hope to make the next steps, make a bit more concrete recommendation, and also extend those good practices to railroads, to inland waterways. This is still ongoing discussion, maybe next year finalized. But it's already time to feed back into the transposed recent directive. What we need also the experiences from the local level to see how the directive is implemented, to see what works, what not. And we need projects like SABRINA or Danube cycle plans to provide it with practical experiences and methodologies and data. Thank you very much.
So now we have one more presentation, the last one before lunch. It will be made by Shanna Luchessi from the International Road Assessment Program. She will present a project named World Free of High Risk. She's the project coordinator located in Lisbon, which is quite far from here, so that's why it will be online. You have the floor, Shanna.
Okay, I hope you can see it now. And today, in fact, I'm in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, so I'm quite far from you. So I'm really sorry that I I had to add the session online, but I'm really glad to be here with you. And let me first start congratulations to you all for the SABRINA result. It's really, really amazing to see how far you went in the project, and really happy to be participating with you today. And I'm sorry that I changed a little bit also the title of my presentation, but I think I would like to focus on the strategy to practice elements of this session. So I'll be talking a little bit more about the assessment tools that some of my colleagues already presented today. So I'll try to be quick. Well, I don't think I need to convince any of you of the importance of building safe cycling infrastructure to attract more cyclists. Unfortunately, what we have been seeing around the globe is that not always the infrastructure implemented is really safe. And as you might know as well, having a bad experience riding a bicycle could be really detrimental for those cyclists that don't feel super comfortable, super safe in riding their bikes among cars. So safety is really, really important, and building safe infrastructure is really, really important if you want to achieve the sustainable development goals, and if you want that have a more greener, more sustainable city. So a lot of studies have been showing this. So this is one example, that as more people feel safe riding a bike, as long as they can go. And I want to also bring you a different perspective that I didn't hear for any of the speakers today. That is the importance for cyclists, for women especially. And cycling has this gender dependency that it's quite important. And I just want to highlight a few things with you. So, for example, this is a study that we have been conducting using the Orange Destination Survey for São Paulo city in Brazil. As you can see, this is the 75% of travels map from the both gender. And there is quite different, right? I mean, women have less trips, more concentrated in some areas, while men have a more broader impact of the cycling in the city, so they can travel far and they can travel more. And why is that exactly? Well, it's because women don't feel safe riding their bicycles in cities. So we have been, again, seeing this, that road safety is a concern for women, and the most common encouragement identified relate to safer roads, safer cycling lanes, and segregated cycle paths. So this data that you see here that also reinforce the maps that I just showed is from UK, and this is happening everywhere in the world. So women are traveling less using bicycle than men, and mostly because they don't feel safe doing so. And this picture that you see on the screen, I took on the streets of Ho Chi Minh cities today, where some brave women are riding their bikes among like 1 million of motorcyclists, because they need to do so. Like this, bicycles for them, and having the opportunity to ride a bicycle for them is really a very important economic and social resources, because most of the women are old women like this one. They don't have like driver's license, they don't have money for buy a car or motorcycle. So the bicycle is really the only resource they have to achieve like job opportunities, education, leisure, and so on. But getting back to the safe infrastructure, we have a real challenge when we talk about cyclists, because different from cars, for example, we cannot really rely on crash data to understand the safety issues with bicycles, because there is a high level of underreporting of crash data related to cyclists, especially of those types of crash that do not involve other vehicle. So when we have like a crash between cycle and vehicle, we normally call like the police, the ambulance to do reports. But if it's a cyclist pedestrians, a cyclist, or a single bicycle crash sometimes, we don't even have records of these crashes. So it's really difficult to have studies that show us the relationship between infrastructure and safety. So that's why you really need to have some types of cycling assessment methods focused on safety to increase road safety for those types of users. So we are lacking research and knowledge into these infrastructure-related causes. We are lacking tools to address this problem. And we are in a really key moment, right? Because we have been facing a rapid uptake of new light mobility vehicles. So we have faster vehicles, more e-power vehicles. We have this increase of mode share and share mobility that are putting more bicyclists on the streets every day. We have this growing of the liver economy that are changing a little bit the patterns of the trips. So we have more large, more power vehicle. We also have night ridings because they need to deliver dinners, for example. So it's changing a lot how the cycling trips have been being presented in cities all over the world. And of course, because of the sustainable mobility agenda that you guys have been talking about on this event, and also the COVID-19 response, we really want cities to make changes in the infrastructure and build more safe infrastructures for cyclists. So I think Marco, my colleague, will talk a little bit about CycleRep. I will not spend too much time on it, but CycleRep is one of the assessment tools that IREP has for the cyclists. The idea of the method is to identify high-risk locations in an easy, affordable, and fast way. And the more important thing is that can be applied anywhere and in all type of infrastructure. So we are not only talking about cycle paths or cycle lane, but we can also assess mixed road traffic, shared footpaths, for example, between pedestrians and bicycles. So we can try to understand road safety issues for cyclists in all these types of infrastructure. And again, we are looking here in CycleRep for 4 crash types. So as I mentioned before, vehicle, bicycle, bicycle pedestrians, bicycle, and single bicycle crash. So very quickly how the model works, and I think you have an idea of seeing the results from the SABRINA project, but we'll be start looking to crash initiation. So what initiates a crash? So it could be, for example, a cyclist that needs to do like avoidance maneuver because of a hole or a drainage open in the pavement. Then we'll be looking to what must be present for a crash to occur. So for example, these obstacles or other elements in the cycle path. Then we'll be looking to the contributed factor, so the amplifier, so what increased the likelihood that the incident of this maneuver will result in a crash. So this could be, for example, a steep, a downhill or a curve. So we have a few contributing factors in the model. And then we'll be checking crash outcomes, what happened as a result of the maneuver. So for example, nothing could happen because the cyclist could just avoid the obstacles and continue in he or her or his way. But the cyclist can maybe run off and hit pedestrians or run off the cycling infrastructure and hit a car. So we can have different type of crash outcomes. We'll be looking to the conditions, so what is present that could affect the outcome of the maneuver. So having a road lane next to the facility will be one of the conditions to have like a vehicle-bicycle impact. And then the severity determinant. So what will determine the severity of the crash? So if the vehicles are traveling at high speed in this road lane that is close to the facility, it's very likely that this crash will end in a very severe outcome. But what does the CycleRep model help with? And here I think we start to talking about strategy and practices. So first we can use the model to test solutions before implemented. So if we don't know for sure if we really need a segregated cycle lane in that road, or maybe in a road with low volumes of vehicles, we are not sure if we can have like a cycling street or a share way. So we can use these models to test these solutions before we put it into practice and before putting cyclists at risk. We can also use to identify safer bicycle routes to inform cyclists about which are the safer bicycle routes for them. Still in the strategy way, we can identify infrastructure risks that can make users feel unsafe and deter cycling use, and correct that to really encourage more cyclists to use this facility. So identify safer bicycle routes in the infrastructure risk. It's also a little bit putting into practice, because we can then make real changes in the infrastructure. And of course, we can verify the benefits of infrastructure upgrade. So if you are installing a new facility, we can use the model to make sure that the facility that we install is safe. So some strategies, again, to choose networks to assess. So we first might want to look for general bicycle and light vehicle safety. So we might focus on major traffic corridors, especially those that are really barriers for cyclists. For example, multi-lanes, high-speed roads, or poor quality facilities that will really deter bicyclists. But we can also use, for example, for improve access to public transportation or this last mile connection. So we can prioritize streets and other facilities within the 0 or 2 kilometers of stations, of metro stations and transport hubs. We can also improve commuters or cross-city links. So we'll be prioritizing commuter corridors and congested facilities. Here, just one observation that PsychoRep was designed for network assessments, but we can also do spot assessment or spot locations assessment as well. We did at the SABRINA project, we use the PsychoRep to do the network assessment, but if, for example, we want to test a specific type of infrastructure, we can use also the model to have an idea of how safe that standard session will be in practice. A few more examples, we could addressing design, maintenance, or capacity issues. We can use in conjunctions with the other star rating assessments. So the SABRINA project is a very nice example of this. And we can improve access and safety for students and young people. So maybe we can prioritize areas around the schools and universities, because cycling is also a very important resource for those that don't have, for example, majority to apply for a driver's license. So a few examples. So here I'm using the Guadalajara city. I'm sorry because the presentation is quite international, but I think we can easily transfer this to any other cities in Europe. So here an example of focus on commuter corridors. So if we look to the map, this is the cycling infrastructure already implemented in the Guadalajara city, but we are missing some very important links. So we can use these assessment methods to understand how can we do these connections and create a cycling network that will really will really support cyclists to go to their origin, to their destination. Another examples with schools that I mentioned. So for example, here I have 1 kilometer radius around the schools in the city. So we might focus on those areas to create cycling infrastructure to students be able to travel for their home to the school, or maybe to the transport hub to the school as well, or to the cycling a bicyclist share station to the school. So it's another approach that we can take. And here again, the connection with the cycling access transit. So you see in the map the transit routes for Guadalajara city, and we can, for example, concentrate our assessments along those corridors to make sure that people can access the mass transit safely. We can also use these assessment tools, and here I'm talking about PsychoRep, but could be star ratings or other assessment tools that already exist to design. So this is quite important because implementing new cycling infrastructure could be quite expensive to cities. So we really want to make sure that the infrastructure that we are building is safe before we take off of our designs and put it into practice. So we can use these assessment tools as well to test designs and see how it's going to work. So how we're collecting this data, I think you already saw this. I just want to highlight that it's quite simple to do it. Like we need, of course, instrumented bicycles with a camera, with GPS. Of course, we want to our assessors be safe, so we need some safe device for them. And you can do it in a bicycle or other light mobility vehicle, or even walking if you want to assess like a small corridor. So data is quite simple to collect. I think you already saw these pictures as well, but I really love this video to show that we can really, with just like a simple way of collecting data, we can identify a lot of attributes that impact safety from this image, and this is how the models work. So extract these attributes from the image, we process into the model, and we have the level of safety to inform decision makers, local authorities, governments, and so on. So what are required to use the PsychoRep model? We need to identify a network to assess. We need to collect data, as I just showed. We need to code this data, process the results, and map to do analysis and report results. So if you have any questions, I know that the guys that are on field with you in this event can explain a little bit more, because we have like trusted suppliers and colleagues representing me in the room. But you can always access the PsychoRep website. So irep.org/PsychoRep. We have like the user guide and the fact sheet that even for those that are not necessarily interested in doing assessment, but they want to learn more about cycling safety, I think the methodology fact sheet that it's available freely in the website is quite important for you. You can also learn and saw a bit what are the expected results. So we can map results, we can draw graphics on these results, and you can really identify the high risk points in the network that we should do something. So just to finish, because I think I'm quite running out of time, just to show you one other application. So we saw PsychoRep applied and other assessment methods applied in the SABRINA project. So just to show you another example outside of the project, but it's still in Europe. So this is one small project that we supported in Rome. So the city of Rome wants to build like a cycling infrastructure in one of these tunnels, because it was quite dangerous for cyclists, because they need to ride among the cars and the speed was quite high. So what we did with our partners, the Fred Engineering, was an interaction project. So in the first iteration, we assess the current situation and measure the level of safety of the infrastructure the way it is. Then we assess detailed design. So we look at the designs and we try to identify which will be the level of safety with that plan implemented, and we made some corrections. Actually, the Fred Engineer made some corrections of the design to make sure that we implemented safety. And then we have a second round of interaction in the current conditions after the facility was implemented in like real life. And just to show you how interesting these results is, and how these results can be a really powerful information for decision makers to implement cycling infrastructure. So what you see in the graph is the before and after. So the orange line is the before the cycling infrastructure was implemented, and the gray line is the after. You can see that in the majority of the sections, we really have a very high improve in safety. So as up the graph, right? So the orange line presents higher risk than the gray line. But even after check the designs, the second iteration and the second assessment was quite important, because in the moment of implementing that cycling infrastructure, one of that sessions did not end as planned, so they need to do some adjustments. And these are the sessions where the risk was higher than the previous condition. So just showing you some practical examples of how important it is to do the assessment, how rich is the results, and how can we explore these results with the decision makers, and also how important it is to conduct these assessments over time to make sure that we are really building safe cycling infrastructure, and that safe cycling infrastructure will be maintained over time. So thank you so much. I hope you could hear me well and the internet connection collaborate with us. You can access the PsychoRep webpage to check the user guide, check the methodology fact sheets. You can also have my contacts on the screen. Unfortunately, I'll not be here with you to discuss things among lunch, but I'm really happy to take any questions by email or any other way. So thank you so much.